Sorry about that. We were looking for a gavel. I now call the Des Moines City Council study session for Thursday, January 26th to order, and I will have Councilmember Harris lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Now, before we get started with the meeting, for those of you that may not have a seat or standing, we do have a room back here where there's additional seating and you'll be able to view the meeting on the TV screen back there. So you're welcome to do that should you choose to do so. And there's 2 seats up there. So anyway, but yeah, it'd be best if you want to sit there, please go there before we begin. All right, so I just want to correct something on the agenda in the order it's going to be, because I think that everybody will prefer this, and I'll get into it a little bit. The way the order of the meeting is going to work tonight is that there is going to be, Michael and I have a few introductory words. There'll be a presentation by staff. We'll have council questions, which will be to make sure we have enough time and so forth for our public comment, which we want to hear all your voices. We're going to do 2 rounds of 2 questions per council member, and then we're going to go into public comment. And then each council member will have an opportunity to do some closing remarks before we adjourn the meeting. That's a little different than the order that was posted. I want to remind folks that this is a business meeting designed to inform the council of the history, facts, and options. I ask that the public refrain from clapping, shouting, or behavior that discourages anyone from providing their insight. All points of view are welcome tonight. And with that, I'll start with my opening remarks, Michael, and then I'll turn the floor to you. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We are about to discuss the Marina, a key and pivotal point in this city's future. I've read all the comments, and so have my colleagues. It's been concerning to read so much misinformation, even to the point of there's been unfounded allegations that have no merit. I want you guys to know, and I repeat this, that no decision has been made. There never was a decision made, and that is fact. Tonight, we will hear and see the presentation questions, and questions will be answered. Opinions should be made tonight, and not prefabricated opinions, especially since much information many of you have heard may not have been accurate. I want you guys to all treat this like a jury trial. So it would be a shame if you read a blog, heard from your neighbor about what we were going to do or what happened in a jury trial. You didn't bother to listen to the testimony and then you went and voted guilty. None of us would think that would be prudent, right? This would be the case tonight. I want you to hear what has to be said, hear it, and then we want to hear from you. And that's one of the reasons why we put the comments from the public after the information is provided. I challenge all our council members and each of you to come here tonight, as I've always said, with an open mind. I want you to have a holistic view. We must refrain from one perspective and entertain them all. We must look at the options no matter how we feel about them, such is the case with the hotel. And finally, we must all decide what is best for Des Moines, and I mean all of it and not just part of it. I ask those that might be viewing tonight to do the same. You will have the opportunity to submit an email to the council before the February 2nd meeting so we can get your feedback as well, and those will be attached to the packet. Tonight, I think many of you will be shocked about the history that you're going to be provided. We've gone through this in many times, and yet little has changed. And we must ask the questions considering the Marina future. Do we repeat the insanity tonight, or do we begin to break it? And with that, I turn the floor over to Michael.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Glad to see you. Glad for the opportunity. I think that, just to echo what the mayor is saying, that, you know, truth matters. And there's been a lot of unfounded things that have gone around recently, and I think that's very unfortunate because it doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve your elected officials, and it doesn't serve the administration to try to put into place the policies our council establishes. So we welcome the opportunity this evening to share with you some of the history and kind of where we are. And some of you may have seen elements of this presentation in the past, and I think that's just testimony to the fact that nothing has moved forward officially to do anything at the moment, okay? So with that, I think, Mayor, we'll start.
Oh, yes. Before we begin, there's 4 chairs there, and there's also in the back there's room for you to go and watch it on a TV monitor, or you could choose to stand. It's going to be a long meeting, so you might want to be a little bit more comfortable. Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz.
Okay. Do you want to give me the keyboard?
Let me pull it. Which one is yours?
Thanks. Sorry, technology. Great. And then I just hit this to go to advance. That one? Okay. All right, thank you, sorry. So this is an opportunity this evening. We're going to talk about the Des Moines Marina, the challenges and opportunities, and we want to walk through the history. And I'm not going to go fast through this. I'm going to take some time and explain what has occurred, what's the basis for where we are. Through the life of our city and marina, there have been many efforts to appropriately enhance the value of our waterfront to our city and region. Tonight, we want to recount a somewhat abbreviated history of those earlier efforts and relate where we are today. And I think that may lend some insight as to where we are. Oops, didn't work. Why not? Or you can do it?
Yeah, try the next one.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the early years, Des Moines, long ago, there was the Alder Beach Manor with the auto ferry to Vashon at the end of South 227th. And then there was the Hyatt Hotel that later became a children's home on the corner of 6th and 226th. That was early on in the city's history. You can see that the Daring, one of the many boats serving Des Moines, we were part of the Mosquito Fleet years ago, ferry service. The logging dock, which doesn't look like a stable dock to me, but apparently it served its purpose. And then the auto ferry to Vashon Island at the Des Moines dock on 227th Street. So there's some history of interaction between the city and the Sound and other destinations. There is a terrace just getting there. It's okay. The poster. There's a poster that you can see, and this is the representation on the screen. No, it's fine. Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go put it right up.
You can find your way.
Go back.
Thank you. And this poster you're going to see was developed in the mid-1980s and identifies most of the improvements that we're trying to make to the marina even today. So that was 40 years ago. And dates me a little bit. I knew the two principals that actually created this poster, not knowing that they had done that until I'd come to Des Moines a number of years ago. And they emphasize a couple of things in there that are interesting. One is emphasis on, you can see the alleyway behind, between Marine View Drive and 7th, where the theater is going up, and what we've done, is underground the utilities there to help facilitate that alleyway. There's emphasis on the connectivity between 223rd. How do you get from the marina to the downtown? And there's also, you can see it's very interesting, along where the docks are, there's a green belt promenade, which currently figures in our plans, hopefully, to provide enhanced pedestrian access and mobility and opportunities at the marina. Just make it really nice, do like a serpentine-type landscape all the way from the Harbor's Master's office down to Anthony's. And add that to the promenade that's been now completed on the north bulkhead that leads to the beach park. So there's a lot of opportunity for our community to enjoy the marina and its attributes. Let's see. Yeah, the other thing is, though, in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of buildings built along the bluffs of the marina. And obviously those provided for extraordinary views of the sound, but they also obstructed views for the rest of the city. And I think that, the way this always seems to work is that they're trade-offs. And it's up to the council to try and balance those trade-offs in the best interest of the city. Thanks. So, multiple attempts to find ways to maximize use and development of the marina. And let's review some of these planning efforts that ranged from interest in passenger ferry service to potential development on the marina floor. And efforts to initiate passenger ferry service started to receive some attention. There was a city council member that was involved in that early on, early 2000, and that essentially led nowhere at that time. But there was an interest in passenger ferry service. So, go next. Thanks. So we had in 2008, and this has been referred to at different times, the University of Washington Architecture School came and did an analysis of the downtown and the marina and tried to identify ways to distinguish Des Moines as a city, vibrant, with ideas, initiation of art throughout the city. And so this was one of their schematics, and you can see, especially around the marina itself, that there's buildings, there's an emphasis on the placement of the stairs there at the foot of 223rd leading down to the marina. They suggested then that we take down the Wasson House. Only took 20 years, or 18 or whatever, to do that. But the idea was that these development patterns have remained relatively consistent. So I'll show you one more that's a little more specific. And that is looking at the area there where the marina steps could go, replacement of the dry stack storage, utilizing the north bulkhead. That's anticipated, and it goes into the study, and you're welcome. The study's on our website. But the farmer's market would be located there. There would be overhanging sort of roofs, temporary roofs that could be utilized on that north bulkhead. And the idea is that you see Wasson there, that's gone. Access to the beach park is enhanced. So it's sort of the same ideas that we've been talking about. And the massing of the buildings, which we call massing, the description of where buildings would be placed and so forth, are similar to what has been recommended multiple times. So, thank you. So that study and efforts to look at the marina found their way into the Des Moines Comprehensive Plan, Marina Master Plan, 2010 Parks Recreation Senior Services Plan, Comprehensive Transportation Plan, Marina District Design Guidelines. Each of these efforts involve comprehensive public input from our community. And a number of those require that public input. So comp plan review, all of that, the 2010, the Parks Recreation Senior Services Master Plan, the Transportation Plan, all of those require public input. So there were opportunities throughout the years to have something to say about what happened in these different portions of the city and with the different emphasis on disciplines. In approximately 2012, thank you. In 2012, the council appointed a joint committee to review marina and beach park development. And this was comprised of community members, council members, and they recommended development options for the marina. And after working through, many meetings and using consultants and lots of time, they considered 4 development options. And ultimately, they recommended a hybrid of options 2 and 3, which I'll show you on the next slide. This committee presented their findings and recommendations to the City Council and engaged the community in their work. So this is option 2 and option 3, and I'll try to walk through these a little. They're maybe difficult to read. Option 2 looked at retail and parking. There was restaurant and retail, multi-thousands of square feet. There was a central plaza. There was a hotel of approximately 100 rooms. And then there was marine industrial. And so, once again, the collective focus of redevelopment occurred right there at that juncture between 223rd and the marina. If you look at option 3, slightly different, but there's mixed-use office, there's restaurants, there's a hotel and plaza, and that would be 75 rooms. They talked about retail and marina industrial, and then marina industrial as well. So they recommended a hybrid of these. And you can see once again, that the massing of the buildings is very similar to, what has been discussed at some of the meetings we've had in recent times. Thanks. So option 2 called for a 100-room hotel, 90,000 square feet of commercial. Option 3 called for approximately 115,000 square feet of commercial space, including a 75-room hotel. The city issued a request for qualifications from the development community and received 3 responses. And all of those responses had in common their response to our request for qualifications for a developer to redevelop the marina. What they all had in common was they were more than willing to develop the marina as long as the city paid for it. Okay, the first thing that I ever did when I was hired here in 2014, before I actually went on the payroll, city manager invited me to come to a meeting to discuss the response to these RFQs. And the one that had been selected, which was called Good Fit, which was interested in doing some type of Epicurean dining options, they had requested we pay the $10,000 for their legal fees to develop their proposal. And I thought, if they need 10 grand to start, it's not going to go well. And so that didn't work. And despite all the hours of community input, advisory committee input, city council time, cost of consultants, and efforts from the public, nothing ever came of those efforts. And one of the problems with it was that the committee had recommended that the city lease land at the marina, and it would be a 99-year lease. And the problem with doing that was that sometimes leases work, and they're around, and people do ground leases for development. But typically they do it in a community or in a city or in a region where it's proven demand exists. So they know that they have a relative likelihood of success. Des Moines had no background, no history in this. And so leasing the land did not attract in the quality of development that's required to make something happen. So all that effort ended in no particular outcome. And in 2016, with the new administration, who you see, your staff now, that had expertise and experience in economic development. At that time, efforts continued to move the marina development process forward. And since that time, we've had 3 separate consultant studies reviewing market conditions, design options, the potential for public-private partnerships. We have had 3 large community open houses to review development options for our public to comment on those options. And we have the boards many of you have seen with the little dots that show where the community wanted us to focus our efforts. And one notable meeting occurred on an Argosy boat moored at the marina, where we had an open house of several hundred people that came and learned more about what the options were and what did they want to see. And I think all of you will be shocked to know that like a brew pub and a wine bar came in first and second. So no reflection on our community though. So, and I agree, that would be great. So we were at the point, you know, where we had different concepts to look at, but right at that time, COVID happened. And in the fall of 2019, Council had authorized the administration to move forward in identifying marina redevelopment partners. And we had prepared a request for qualifications, and we're going to go out with that. And then COVID started right at that time. And so what we thought with our consultants was it was best to wait, because we did not know, nobody knew the severity of COVID at that time. Sorry. What have I done? The risks, what was going to happen. And so unforeseen challenges resulted in significant delays across all city programs, services, and resources were diverted to maintaining community safety and continuity of government operations. And that included marina redevelopment efforts. And I want to tell you, to this point, I'm almost hesitant to say this, over the 2.5 years of COVID response, this city has suffered 0 fatalities among their staff or families. Okay, and that is a function of the efforts that we put into protecting our community and our workers and working with the council and with our emergency services personnel, with our first responders, the fire department, our police. We were able to respond effectively to COVID. And we're extremely grateful for that, but that did slow down efforts to do anything else. So all along for us, at least since 2016, as we looked at this, we have conscientiously observed council direction. And one of the main points the council made, and I'm going to call out Councilmember Nutting for being one of the proponents and champions of this, was that residential development would not be considered on the marina. Okay, there would not be townhomes and condos and apartments and whatever on the marina floor. That would not be part of the development process. And that was even though in the development community, and it's an ongoing issue for all of Puget Sound and Western Washington, housing, there are shortages in housing generally. And that was a sweet spot where developers would have come in immediately and done residential development. And we said, no, that's not on the table, per the direction of our council. Then finally in March of 2022, we entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement with the developer, Embarcadero McBride Cohen Group, received a $35,000 good faith fee from them, And the exclusive negotiating agreement simply means that you've chosen them to have discussions about future development and establishing a development agreement that would have to be agreed to by the council and by the principals of the private sector firm. During these negotiations and discussions, the developer expressed strong interest in expanding the development scope. He wanted to do more than we had originally anticipated. We determined that any consideration of expanding the development footprint required council approval and additional public input. The developer respected the city's decision, and in September of 2022, we terminated the exclusive negotiating agreement and refunded the $35,000 good faith fee, essentially placing the redevelopment process of the marina kind of back where we had started and what was going to happen next. And the first thing we did was have a public meeting on September 27th last year at the Senior Activity Center and talked about kind of what options existed and the fact that we had just about completed renovation of the north bulkhead. And is it appropriate? This is a question. Is it appropriate to consider that area as a potential development option or not? And no decision has been made, okay? Obviously, there are developers in the private sector, especially hoteliers, who consider that to be a prime spot for hotel development. But there was no decision made whatsoever. We just said, oh, okay, they're interested. Community, what do you think? Council, what do you think? Moving on here. So, as a result, we're given that, and given the response of our community, this is kind of where we've come to. And as a result of COVID and other national and international macroeconomic factors, including the war in Ukraine, which has affected the cost of fuel, inflation, which to some degree is a function of aggregate demand. There was a lot of money put out through the CARES Act, through unemployment benefits, and through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Supply chain challenges that exist both with Asia and domestically, shortages of labor, the tightness of the labor market, the difficulty in hiring staff. The lay of the land has changed. And we believe, and we will recommend to the council, at this time, the city is in a better position to continue to pursue capital and infrastructure projects through public investment and not to return to the private sector with a request for qualifications that we would not seek a private partner at this time. And that's because the dynamic of financing public efforts is very different than it is public efforts than it is doing private efforts. So it may make sense that we just do it ourselves, which was always the plan. Even though the council in 2019 had been open to consideration of selling the developable portion, having learned from the previous experience with trying to lease the land, that would have attracted private investment with that opportunity. And then the proceeds from the sale of the land could help pay for the marina steps. So that was the thinking, which now we're going to recommend a change in that. It is becoming apparent that a public-private partnership may not achieve the timely outcomes that we seek. And what's been introduced in the private sector and investment has been uncertainty. And uncertainty is, like poison for developers, right? They want certainty. They want to know that what they're putting their money in, what the return is going to be. And so there's a lot of challenges in our economic picture in this country at this time. And so our conclusion is that we will be better off doing it ourselves. So the linkage to the downtown, and this is really critical, is the marina steps are the heart of marina redevelopment. This will link the downtown to the marina. Additional phases include investment in marina infrastructure, replacing docks, providing integrated access and utilization of the marina, and the landside development that we've talked about. Continuing to invest in the public infrastructure on the land side will accomplish pedestrian connectivity all the way from the entrance to the beach park with promenade development that will eventually link to Anthony's Homeport Restaurant, as I mentioned earlier. For example, tearing down the Wasson House, creating open space and connectivity to the beach park was a critical component establishing mobility and access. And I can only think, and I'm wondering if any of you have had this experience, where people, when Wasson used to be sitting there, people told me they never discovered there was a beach park because they thought it was all residential development. And we took down Wasson and everyone was shocked to discover there's a beautiful 27-acre park right there with access to the water, the meadow, and the facilities that exist. So these are some of the public investments that have been completed. On the left, you can see the open space for Wasson. I'm going to tell you anecdotally, this is what happens if you're a city manager. We had fenced this area off after we took down the house, and I received calls from people who were complaining that we were incarcerating geese and we needed to let them go. Okay, and I said we were just trying to get a little extra money for Christmas. But at any rate, then the question became, how did the geese get out? How did they get in? How did they get out? Okay, I do get calls like that. I also get calls for recycling not being picked up, but it turns out it's Des Moines, Iowa. So you can see there on the left is the open space from Wasson, which I think is just a wonderful asset to the city. You can see Soundview Park that was built where that old Van Gaskin house had been, which has come out great and gets lots of utilization. I know there are people in the audience think it gets too much utilization, but and then also you can see the improvements to the bulkhead that were made, $12 million. And that assures the integrity of the north bulkhead. And you can see with the king tides and some of the global climate change dynamic that was important to replace that, to make sure we could retain that bulkhead. And I might mention, it's not on the slides, but one of the things about the bulkhead is that it's a critical emergency management facility for us. And you can land boats there, you can land helicopters, you can do logistical planning. You can get supplies if there was an event. It happened, like, for example, at SeaTac Airport or somewhere else. We've got the new infrastructure going up 216th. 24th Avenue takes us right to SeaTac Airport. So there's some really important strategic uses of the bulkhead and it was necessary to do what we needed to protect it. Also, we had the successful phase of passenger ferry service last summer. It was very successful, more than we ever thought in terms of revenue and passenger usage and the response of people to the quality of that experience. And also, we're happy that, you may know there's the community shuttle that links the Angle Lake Station to the downtown and the marina. And that was originally done for 3 years. We did a pilot project with Metro. And the outcome of that was that we met the ridership goals, and Metro, in their most recent budget going forward, is establishing that as fixed route service, and they're going to pay for it. So that, relative to multimodal transportation options and bringing people down here and into the downtown, into the marina, it's been very successful. The passenger ferry service, we will recommend to council in the next couple of weeks that we expand the service in the future, try to catch commuters, provide 7-day service or 6-day service. And I can tell you that last year it was difficult to find a dock. Finally, the Port of Seattle accommodated our landing up in Seattle. And this year we've had 4, the port, the county, the city, and a private developer have all offered their docks. So that's, just really great stuff. And represents sort of multimodal development. I want to also say that we were heard from a number of businesses, and we have some documentation, emails and letters and so forth, but a number of the downtown businesses said that they saw an increase in business and they attributed it to the ferry service. So that's, and if you can imagine with the Marina steps in place, what impact that will have. So those are just all positives. Ferry service, there we go, 14,000 people, 9-week window, very reasonable rates. I think we were $10 per trip, and we gave children under 13 were free. Vets, active vets and seniors were $5. So we tried to accommodate what was reasonable for folks. There have been some examples of successful development that are going on right now. The quarter deck was early on at the Marina, and that's been I would say, huge success, extremely valuable, both as a resource for our community and also as proof that business can be successful at the Marina. Marina redevelopment, as I mentioned, the ferry service and others, that will expand business opportunities in the downtown and at the Marina. Passenger ferry, as I mentioned, proved that. And then hotels. So we're not doing residential. Hotels, for example, are excellent at creating positive economic impacts. And we looked at one study done by a group of Oxford consultants, and their assumption, what they came to find out from reviewing the quantitative data and then coming to conclusions, if you pay $200 a night for a hotel, in all likelihood you will spend more than $200 in local restaurants, retail, transportation, whatever. If your room's $500, you're going to pay over $500. That will be because that will be the environment in which you're paying that much. There will be quality restaurants and shops and all of that. So they are economic engines. On the right, you can see the theater that's coming to completion, and that's going to be, just a great facility. As I said, we've undergrounded the utilities in the alleyway behind the theater in partnership with PSE, and that's going to serve, a portion of our population, a demographic. I think that is just going to be awesome. It's on the commuter shuttle route, and that should help. I guess it's a good thing. We want to keep our kids at home, right? So that should help that they have something to do in Des Moines. So that's kind of the summary of it, and I very much appreciate your attention. It was insightful going through all of this and learning a lot of what the history had been, and seeing how consistent with the mayor's message that repeating this pattern. I mean, I don't want to be here 10 years from now. I think it's unlikely it'll be me, but somebody sitting here saying, let's go back through the history of, in 2022 and 2023, here was the massing. So now we're in 2032, and no, we have an opportunity, and I'm going to turn this over to Skylab's, our architects, who've been on board for about 3 years with us, maybe longer now with COVID, because I don't know about you guys, but COVID has completely screwed up my sense of time. But at any rate, we're going to have Jeff Covell, who's their principal, just walk through what we have seen as possibilities for the Marina, and then we'll, Mayor, turn it back over to you. Jeff, thank you. Do you want to?
Oh, here. Got it. Hi, my name is Jeff Covell. I'm the principal and founder of Skylab Architecture, and I'm happy to be here today to share some of our work over the last few years, and hopefully it will nest nicely into Michael's presentation, which I really enjoyed. It was really interesting to see all of the diagrammatic histories and massings, and I think setting that up to see this work now will be really useful. So we started this project, and really the core task was to design a connection between downtown and the marina, and really that was the focus. But in order to do that well, it was important to also sort of zoom out and open up our lens and sort of look at some of the existing conditions, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and figure out how they might play into the ultimate solution. And so we came up with this, what we call a pedal diagram, which was essentially answering the question of how do we build a successful and sustainable waterfront. So for us, we thought the combination of urban design, which would essentially be, creating a large public gathering space or a public gathering space, connecting to downtown, the urban integration, creating better access to the water, universal accessibility, which is a really important aspect because we have about 35 feet of height to navigate, grade change to navigate to connect the marina to downtown. To create a there, like to really make a destination that's sought after and useful to folks. And then to potentially look at other types of programs that we could add to add vitality, such as the Marine Mammal Rescue Hospital. So that urban design piece was one leaf of the pedal. The next was the landscape, so really landscape design. So really looking here at kind of the big picture, how do we redevelop this embankment, which right now is essentially a parking lot, a fenced-off parking lot, and there's some stormwater pipes running through it. How can we really look at the ecology of what we're doing and try to take land that was once natural and has been paved over and sort of return it to a more harmonic state with the natural systems. Look at the stormwater strategy. So not just for our site, but one of the things we couldn't ignore is that right under the proposed steps site, there's about a 24 or 30-inch diameter pipe that is essentially carrying a large amount of stormwater from the neighborhood above directly into the bay without treatment. So there is sort of that's an issue that I think a lot of people all over the world are working to eliminate scenarios like that and to treat stormwater before the pollutants run off into the bay. So there's an existing condition that was an opportunity. And then really looking back at like what are the native plants and ecosystems and how can we be restorative or regenerative in that. And then lastly, the architecture piece. So the idea that the steps they're not the sole function here. There's this idea of creating vitality through adding food and beverage, maybe adding some services to the marina, maybe adding some other types of program, but essentially there's space for buildings adjacent to these steps, and so we needed to zoom out and make sure that anything we did with the steps created the opportunity for connectivity to these development parcels. We weren't determining the outcome of what those developments would be, but looking at one of the things that's very restrictive in this site is the height limit is 35 feet off the marina floor. That's very low, and so it's a good thing for the people that have views from behind, but it's very challenging in terms of putting building or uses here because there's only so many outcomes you can create, and then making sure that the levels of those potential buildings could tie into these steps so that there could be a coffee shop that you could access from the ramps or that type of thing, services. So looking at the architecture in terms of how we could spur that private investment, how we could potentially have it phase over time, and then just really making sure that the architecture supported the place. They were quality buildings. It was enhancing the landscape, not detracting from it. So we took and broke down each one of those into some zones. And so looking on the landscape piece, for us, the ecological and environmental piece is really one of the most exciting parts of this project. You know, I think we all live in the Northwest because it's an incredibly beautiful natural place. Our watershed is a big reason why. And we happen to sit right next to this incredible creek. And there's really a whole system of watersheds coming down through the city, which you can see all the yellow lines here are essentially natural drainages. So we mapped these and identified them because we wanted to understand how they were working and how our piece would relate to them. And one of the things we quickly found was where I've got 60 acres here. Let's see if I can get this to work. So the Marina step site is here. Uphill, almost 50% of downtown. Well, a portion of it flows to Des Moines Creek. But just to the east of that, there's a 60-acre parcel, which essentially is collected down to 23rd and goes and flows directly into the sound with no treatment. And so, you know, we saw that as an amazing opportunity, really, to make our project more meaningful, have more benefit to the community, have more benefit to the marine mammals or wildlife in the sound, and also just the quality of the water itself at the marina, really. So, you know, consequences of untreated runoff are here. That image, I think, in the middle of the uncontrolled algae blooming is actually a picture here. And so we thought, well, let's, instead of just, you know, kind of continuing to solve this problem by burying it, what if we collected all this water and brought it to the surface? And this notion of this urban creek, what if we created a display, essentially, of the stormwater management? And you'll see this, you know, around lots of places with street tree water infiltration planters and whatnot. But how could we essentially leverage this? So not only are we trying to connect, you know, people from the downtown to the marina, but also bringing the watershed to the surface and using it as a way to sort of bring to life that walk and that journey, right, and make it more enjoyable, more interesting, less about cars and roads and more about nature and habitat. And so we collect the water, we'd bring it down through where it says stage 2 here, down through the stairs. There could be a central plaza that maybe has some type of celebratory water element, and then ultimately connects down all the way to the sound itself. So we looked at 223rd and saw, you know, it's an interesting street because it's actually relatively wide. There's angled parking on one side, parallel parking on the other, and we thought, well, you know, are there ways where we could integrate landscape, lighting, stormwater, you know, and essentially create a natural corridor that would connect the downtown to the marina. And, you know, could that include elements where these are just examples around the world of urban infrastructure where the stormwater is used as a way to kind of bring some of these spaces to life. And then, you know, when we get to the stairs themselves, could there be an element of this that starts to cascade down the stairs? You know, not to get too into the weeds on this, but likely there would be two systems. There'd be a natural stormwater system and then a more decorative water system that could be controlled during like the summertime when there's not great stormwater flows and whatnot. But our project would anticipate both. So moving to the urban design piece, you know, here one of the things that we found was really interesting was just, this was a walkability map, so it's hard to read here, but with the site here, I think this first ring is a 5-minute walk, so within 5 minutes of the steps and potential plaza, you know, we capture, you know, most of the downtown. 10 minutes, maybe all of the downtown, and then 15 minutes, a big ring of the surrounding area. So this is a very walkable to everybody that lives, on this image essentially. And I think that really that's just to support the idea that a public space here would have a lot of users and could attract a lot of vitality. And so, one of the things we've talked about a lot is, so there's the steps and they take you down, but what are they taking you to? Are they taking you down to a parking lot, which, essentially the bottom of the steps would be still a pretty big distance away from the waterfront, or are they taking you to a multi-use space that could be a lot of things. Some of these images are showing water, some aren't. Some of this, like this, for example, and you'll see this in a lot of parks, or this one even, where there can be a water element, but it can be turned off so that you could have a large festival there, or you could put up tents, or here there's ramps and steps that almost create a natural amphitheater. We've talked a lot about the Spanish Steps in Rome and how they're really a big piece of furniture, and people can hang out on them and meet up with their friends, and kids can play at the bottom and whatnot. And so we feel like this destination plaza, as long as it's really very flexible, could work very well here. And then looking at the circulation, so early on we spent a lot of time studying accessibility primarily, because with 35 feet of steps, what the first notion or thought was that we were going to require an elevator, because it was just it would take too much land to create a ramp scheme that met the grading required for accessible standards. But as we got into that more and more, we kept looking at sort of the cost of the elevator, the issues of maintaining it, the security issues, what happens at night, what time does it close, blah blah blah. It's just all sorts of challenges with that, and we determined that we actually had a great solution for ramping. So there's the current design is still pretty close to this, where there's a main steps, 223rd is up here. The road kind of swings this way. And then there's a series of ramps that take you down. And these are 1 to 20 ramps, or maximum, so they don't require handrails. They don't require landings. They're essentially very gentle. It's not like a typical ADA access ramp that you might see that has been added to a building. And so the benefit of that is it's universally accessible 24/7. It also is could be a really enjoyable journey, right? That it's not just you have the shortcut. If you just want to get down quickly, you can do that. If you want to take a longer meandering stroll, you can do that as well. And there could be lots of interesting educational elements, sculptural elements, amenities along the way, essentially. And then that would take you down to the plaza, and then ultimately tie into the promenade, which again isn't really part of our scope beyond maybe the central area, but we've always seen it as a really natural extension once this first phase gets installed, that we'd carry that down to the south. And so this is just a diagram looking at water. Maybe the stormwater is getting treated in terraces adjacent to the steps, and then you would have this water feature at the bottom, which would not be the stormwater. It would be something that was, treated and pumped and up to public safety standards and whatnot. And then looking at the planting and the landscape design is really very kind of native inspired. So bringing in grass, mostly grasses, a habitat that you might have found here before human development, essentially, and kind of bringing it back and carrying it all the way up, and essentially doing a native restoration to the bank. And then a notion that we came upon that I think we all were, and I think we all are still very excited about, is this notion that if you go to almost any beach or island here, you'll find driftwood all over the beaches, and it's really beautiful. And people love to sit on it and look at it, and it's an iconic element. And we've never really seen anybody take that and bring it as a design element into a constructed space, at least not to this level. And so the idea here is that we're bringing in this sort of silver driftwood, carrying it all the way up through the steps, and making that a really beautiful native sculptural element. Those elements could be benches, there could be playground elements on them, there could be inscriptions, just a really exciting kind of innovative landscape solution, but that's very rooted in this idea of native habitat and restoration. And then on the architecture side, as we started looking at that, we essentially have looked at a series of options. And I think this part of the proposal, we're going to kind of ground in what part of the site isn't architecture, and then we can talk about the various scenarios for architecture. So this is a diagram. Essentially this yellow outline here is what we see as the sort of proposed core footprint of the phase one for this project. So this would include ramps, steps, embankment. One of the benefits of the way this is designed is that what we're actually doing is all of this happens below the condominium building here. And so the idea is that essentially we're eliminating the risk of that, of there being any landslide issues there by essentially, building a embankment in front of that embankment. And as development were to, move north and south, we would continue that pattern. But essentially, this development would have, like a retaining wall on each side, and then this would be backfilled with soil and whatnot, to essentially create a gentle ramp all the way down. And we've been very aware and very careful of just sort of the adjacency issues to some of the units in there, and it's been top of mind for us. But here you can see this sort of central plaza. You can't see here under number 22 is the Harbor Master House. As the baseline scope, it remains kind of as is. There's an enhanced idea of turning it into a restaurant, food and beverage. There's further enhancement ideas of taking it down and replacing it with a new structure, all of which have been discussed, and there's pros and cons to each. And then essentially making sure that the new development kind of gets you to the water, that you don't reach some kind of artificial line where now it feels like you've left the project before you've gotten to the payoff. So the outline of that site is here. And you can see this essentially leaves the fenced-in development parcel next door in phase one. It has some potential impact to this boat shed. Like this may get at least reduced, if not replaced, in phase one. The lift and marine service facility remains. And actually one of the things that's really elegant about this too is the connection to the ferry service, right? It really starts to tie into that really beautifully. So this is a vision of what we're proposing as, the baseline scope, essentially, and what the community would see after the first phase of the development, or something similar to this anyway. So then looking at some additional public amenities. So these are things that have been discussed. Again, no decisions, but core kind of ideas. Starting with, as I mentioned, maybe there's a replacement of the Harbor Master House. It's an old building. It's not built extremely well. There is, turning it into a restaurant can be done, but it would be, it's worth considering what a new structure would look like in comparison from a cost and outcome perspective. And one of the ideas here is, could you actually do a large covered area off of it that could become that farmer's market element? It could be an event space for the public. It could provide essentially year-round outdoor dry space to the community. So again, whether this is the exact shape or not, just the idea that there could be an enhanced facility there. Right behind that, this parcel B is, we've really seen this as essentially primarily a boat storage facility, but that could also have some commercial and retail space associated with it. So like in this version, the boat facility might stop, somewhere in here, and the side of the building that faces the steps could be accessed from the ramps and terraces, and we, whether that's where the harbor master moved in the event that the harbor master house changed use, or that's where the marine mammal hospital went, or there's a myriad of ideas, but the primary use of this would be to take advantage of this boat lift, and then this would be essentially a stacked boat storage facility. So you would call, I think the idea is you store your boat there. When you want to use it, you essentially call in advance, and they pull it out and have it ready for you. And this also has been put in a way where it doesn't impact the adjacent marine service site. And then the last piece to this is the idea of adding some restrooms here. That right now there's restrooms in part of the harbor master house. There's been some various discussions about who those would serve and how they would function, but there's an opportunity there. There's also some fuel docks there that we have to avoid, essentially. So those are the sort of public opportunities, in addition to, I think, a lot of other elements in terms of just the marina updates. Uncovering the docks is a thing that's in process, and that's starting to move south. Here you're kind of seeing what that promenade might look like in the future if the park scape is extended down to the south. And here's a rendering of kind of if you saw all those public enhancements happen, how this might look. Again, this is a very low slung building and is designed to stay below the windows of the adjacent condominiums. So then on the private development side, we've looked at lots of options, but I think one of the core options has come down to this Site A, and it having the primary adjacency with the steps, that it could be accessed from the side. There's potentially a way to come onto the roof of this and access it from above. It could be a planted roof. There could be an elevator associated with the private development that could serve that public use, and essentially be managed by the ownership of that building, which could be a benefit to everyone. And that sorry, it's a little bit hard to see, but that the building here you're seeing, this is a sort of longer finger. It's essentially like two buildings in a way with a courtyard in the middle. And this is just one version, but this was envisioned originally as a hotel, and one of the things is trying to get views out of the hotel and getting enough hotel rooms. What we're calling sort of the pier orientation is necessary to get to any reasonable quantity of rooms and have those rooms be attractive. There are other types of programs where we could start to explore how far that pulls back or moves forward. But essentially that parcel would remain the study area, for that scheme. And then, as Michael alluded to, some of the input we were getting from the private development community was, maybe we should open up the lens and look at, is there a more efficient place to put a hotel or some other use? Is there easier to build, better views, more rooms, blah, 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 essentially, it's quite a complicated building to sort of try to do that, and put it back in this corner. So, would it be potentially more successful to reach that type of agreement, if we open the lens? So this is some of the work I think we showed last time, but essentially in this case, one of the things that's interesting is, you essentially would have two development sites, and what we were thinking about in this scheme was that you would build a parking garage here that would also have commercial space around the perimeter. And so the benefit would be, a few benefits. This building gets pulled back, so it's not sticking out so far here. And you essentially get to a larger square footage of developable space, which might make it a private investment more successful, essentially. Again, that was just a study, and certainly I think is worth considering. But I think what we're really kind of coming to the table to tonight is to say, here you can see that all together. Where you see a building out here, you can see how it could have a promenade along the edge, which could bring a lot of vitality to the bulkhead as you're journeying along here. A reduced footprint building here, a bigger sort of public plaza even down here. But essentially, I think what we're really focused on is the first steps is this public development piece. So we believe that this approach leaves, we've studied enough of the outcomes, essentially, that this leaves all options on the table. And it's designed in a way where essentially the decision-making around adjacent development doesn't need to be made today. It can be made in the future. And I think that sums up my presentation.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll get to council questions in a minute. I think, are we putting up the?
Excuse me, please keep your voices down until we get to the public comment, please. Thank you.
Right. So what we anticipate is based on these two presentations you saw, and this focus on, let's consider these public works, public infrastructure type of capital projects, that we will we'll mention it tonight, and then I think the council's intention is to come back on the 2nd of February and give us direction on how to proceed. And with that, Jeff, thank you. I've heard that presentation many times, and each time it gets better and is slightly different, which is awesome. So, Mayor, I think that concludes our presentations.
Thank you, Michael. All right, now's going to become the time for council questions. We're going to do 2 rounds of 2 questions each. I ask that your questions be directed to the city manager, and he'll direct to staff or otherwise the person appropriate to answer that. Do I have a volunteer to go first? Councilmember Nutty.
Thank you, Mayor. My only question that I have right now is there has been discussion about the north bulkhead and the feasibility of building a building on that north bulkhead, but there's not been discussion on the feasibility of building a building on that north bulkhead and the difficulties that would ensue with conventional building on that bulkhead. So I'd just like some information on that for the public.
Yeah. Never calling Jeremy first, all right? So it's a great question, and there's a couple of potential problems with that north bulkhead relative to any development. And one of them is that when the fishing pier was built, there was an agreement through the U.S. Federal Department of Interior that there would be the retention of a certain number of parking spaces. I think there are 53 spaces on the north bulkhead to serve the fishing pier. And the way it works is there's an organization, an agency within the state government called RCO, Recreation Conservation Office. And they are the ones that interact with the Department of Interior. We've talked with them about the possibility, would it be possible, if there was interest in pursuing anything, to trade accessible land that's used for recreation for those 53 spots? And could we do something else with those? Potentially build a parking garage next to the steps along the hillside, or whatever that looks like. But that's not anything that's unwound at the moment, and it's not clear how difficult it would be to unwind that. So that's one consideration in terms of permitting. The other issue, Councilmember, is that, and this is, I think, where you're going to, there were tiebacks done with the development and the renovation of the bulkhead. And those tiebacks may intrude on a building design, establishing a foundation for any type of building on that bulkhead. And that would be something the engineers have to look at carefully to determine, A, is it feasible to do? And second question, is it cost effective? What's the cost of doing that? So those are at least two unknowns that are significant in any potential development.
And just to interject, the fact that that whole entire bulkhead is fill. So it's not structural. So, okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton, I saw your hand next.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've received several questions in regard to the Shoreline Master Program and the Shoreline Master Plan, and there are questions about setbacks and also the usability for like marine or waterfront purposes. So I was wondering if somebody might clarify if there were something that were considered on that bulkhead area, that parking lot area, how would those parameters be overcome?
I don't think we quite look at it like overcome. Like how would we be in compliance with the requirements of those things? Shoreline, yeah, well, we'd have to do that. I mean, I think Jeff has referred to, and which I think most people here have heard before, there's a 35-foot limit on anything within, I think, 200 feet of mean tide from the sound, which is pretty much everything. So we'd have to be in compliance with that. There are opportunities within the Shoreline Master Plan to have activities, and you can designate areas. I think the beach park's designated recreation, and that this was designated for some types of urban development, depending. But there would be, yes, there would be many factors of compliance. I think that we could share, when we did the bulkhead, we had to go through, because it was affected the sound, potentially. We had to go to the Army Corps of Engineers to get a permit. And then in order to get that permit, we needed kind of a sign-off by the, what's called National Fishery and Marine Services Office as part of NOAA. And it took 4 years to get that permit to renovate the bulkhead. We were kept hoping that the bulkhead would not deteriorate before we got the permit. Okay, that was dealing with the federal government. So at any rate, so yeah, there are a lot of complications in how all of this gets done. But it has been done. There is marina redevelopment in many, Vancouver, Washington, and Everett, and other places. So it can be done, but yes, it's not simple.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, my understanding it was originally that part of the idea of selling off a piece of property down there to a private developer brought us an infusion of cash, which could then be put towards the marina steps. I want to understand why public development may be cheaper than private development right now, and that in the long run, the city is going to be able to not only bond that out, but be able to handle that debt service. Can you address that?
Yeah, I think one of the one of the things, okay, so the main issue is cost of money. And so typically, you know, we've just been through a time, quantitative easing to avoid recession that had interest rates at historic lows. And then the federal government, for better or for worse, infused our economy with like $1 trillion. And it's, you know, like, so what happened was that now the inflation has increased. That shouldn't come as a surprise. But inflation has increased, interest rates have gone up. But the thing, so the advantage to the public sector, per your question, is that the municipal bonds that we finance are about half of prime, what prime loans are given to businesses. And whatever that number is, it's about half for us to bond in terms of the cost of money. I might also add that, you know, 9 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever, we were facing bankruptcy. And we got out of that, and we got a very strong fund balance, and we were very disciplined, and we have plenty of reserves right now. And we had Standard & Poor's came up here and did a bond review, and they gave us a 3-step bond increase to AA+. So for the city of Des Moines, the cost of money is almost as low as you can get if you're a municipal entity. So we would work with what that structure of cost would be and then look for ways to service the debt. And just one other comment about Des Moines, you know, we have huge bonding capacity. We probably have $35 million we could bond pretty easily. The problem is paying the bonds off. That's harder. And so that's like coming up with the debt service, you know, every year to make sure that you can continue to maintain the bond. So those would be challenges, and we work with council on trying to find ways to address those.
Did you get a second question? Yes. Okay. The second question, probably a little more straightforward, is that 223rd, the bioswale, or Urban Creek that's planned there, there's a similar situation up in Seattle. It's called the Swale and Ale, I think. And it's fairly wide. It takes up a fair amount of space. Have there been any studies or measurements of how big a swell or swale that we would need in order to take the drainage that's coming off of 223rd? And is that going to leave enough room on the street still to have cars and pedestrians?
Yeah, those are all great questions. That's part of your multi-question. We talked about
it's one subject, maybe multiple questions.
Yeah. So what we did a few years ago was we just did a very preliminary look at that. And I think the comment was made, I believe, Jeff, you said that 223rd is a relatively wide street. So then the question would be, okay, so what functions could exist in that environment? And the legislature, kindly enough, came up with about $300,000 of planning money for us last year that we'll use this year to really answer that question. And I think one of the things that's valuable about having a sort of an urban creek is that you can use the water to help protect pedestrians walking on that roadway and then separate them from the cars. You could also potentially have a bike lane. And the question is, you know, will that all fit? So that's a perfectly fair question, and that would be one of the things that we'll be looking at and try to come up with an answer.
I'll just quickly add,
Yeah.
we did a preliminary calculation with the civil engineer initially, and almost all of the capacity was essentially being handled in the steps themselves. So the strip that would exist along 223rd, we were taking advantage of some of it, but it wasn't a very large feature, and it wasn't what we were leaning on for the bulk of the treatment. So obviously we could change that. We could not do it in the steps and push more volume up there, but it looked to be a reasonable outcome initially.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yeah, I want to go back to the bonding question, and you know, myself and Councilmember Nutting are probably the only two council members here that worked through the near bankruptcy of the city. And so my question would be, and if you don't have an answer, we could have it here in the future, but my question would be in terms of cost of the public sector job, public sector work, the cost of that, and if there's an estimate, I'm sure there is at some point, you know, what is that going to cost? And then what's the projection for our future capacity to pay off those bonds? Do we have the capacity? And I know that we do a projection, you know, into the future about 5 or 6 years. So where do we stand at this point?
Well, you know, we're going to come back, like I said, to council for direction. So until we've had the direction, we've not spent a lot of time on what the costs and so forth. We know generally what they are. But I think one thing that's really important is that, you know, the more investment we have in infrastructure as a public entity, you know, and owns the marina, moving forward with those investments, what that creates is, and, you know, a lot of people talk about economic development. Well, it's not so much economic development that's going to be created. That will be kind of a secondary. It's business development. And it's helping businesses in the downtown be successful and attracting in new businesses. Having some of those properties that need to turn over because now they're more valuable. And people that have held them for 40 years will now sell them, and we can do something more dynamic can happen. And so the long term, so as the steps, you know, are built and functional, there's still going to be an outstanding bond. But what's going to happen is the local economy will have increased and will generate greater returns to the city. And so those are orders of magnitude, and we'll need to figure those out and share those with you. But at the moment, we don't know exactly what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to what you find. The other part that I had a question about was the marina infrastructure, you know, the fuel tanks and all of that. That's a pretty complicated system right under there. Is that going to be moved, or is that going to be disturbed? So that's kind of the first part of the question. And I don't recall when those were replaced. I think they were somewhere in the last 10 years, I think. Would this be an opportunity to replace those? Because I think, you know, you're going to have a much greater problem, I think, replacing them in the future, depending on what, you know, this build-out is here. So kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, you only get one.
But like my colleague said, they're all related and the same.
Yeah.
Just answer the easy one. And
Yes. No, the answer to that is interesting, but I mean, there is not, I think, currently an intention to replace those fuel tanks. And one of the things that looking at the bulkhead as an alternative was to prevent the need to deal with those fuel tanks. So, I mean, you know, that the answer is, I don't think that's in the equation relative to the plan. It would be nice to leave them as they are and not disrupt them and have to deal with that, because that's just added cost, you know.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Where to begin? Has there ever been any talk about moving CSR slightly southward? Because if you notice, basically, 223rd, you've got that height all the way to Waterfront condos. And so that gives you about 450 linear feet of boat storage. And, you know, basically that's real money. So I'm just asking.
Well, the answer is no.
Okay. The other thing is, so what is, can you be a bit more specific as to what you had in mind to present at February 2?
What? We'll show you, I guess it's at the end.
I mean, you're asking for like a decision point, correct?
Asking for basically consensus from council as to how to proceed.
Yeah,
and
but
we'll have a statement.
But there are a lot of elements here in the, you know, so I'm just asking, like, what specifically will be the things that will be asked to provide direction on.
You'll see it shortly.
Tonight?
Yes.
Cool. You know what, I guess that's.
So that, yeah, that's your two, you'll have it.
Oh, no, wait, one other thing. You mentioned an Oxford
You get some more
consultant
later.
study on hotels. Could we get that?
Yeah, sir, you can ask that on the next round. Mr. Oxiger, did you want to ask questions on this round?
Yes, so okay, am I correct in saying that the only thing that we're talking here about doing, that there's any kind of solidity in the plans is the steps, that everything else, the possibility of a hotel in what was parcel A, the adaptive purpose building, the bioswales, the possibility of the hotel out on the main parking lot out front and everything, that's all iffy. The only thing that we're doing now, because everything, yeah, just that is everything else is just a ball in the air.
Hadn't thought of it quite like that. Iffy is not the appropriate term, because what you've done is conflate private investment with public investment. What we're talking about is the public portion, and as Jeff identified, that essentially would be the steps, the adaptive purpose building, which will allow us to do the dock replacement so boats could be located in a structure during that time and in the future. The looking at the planning piece for 223rd and the possibility of restrooms if that was the appropriate place that they could go. So public amenities, public investments is what we're talking about, not private.
Okay, so as far as then developing, to me, this is where I think we've gotten into a problem here, is that.
Just asking questions. You'll have time to comment at a later time.
Okay. So then what stage are we at with the development of the adaptive purpose building? Do we have any kind of solidified plans, or is it still basically, we may have a facility here and we may put stuff in it?
Well, we're trying to be very conscientious not to spend money before council approves our doing it. So we have not looked at that, in terms of design and so forth. We are taking a few tours of other facilities in the region to see how other people have done it and what their cost structure is and all of that.
I take it that's my two.
For this round, sir. All right. I want to talk about the adaptive purpose building first. Obviously, it's separate and in the Marina Enterprise Fund. Could you elaborate a little bit more about how that's paid for versus the Marina steps?
So the idea is that the adaptive purpose building would provide dry stack storage for boats. It's a marina facility. It'd be paid for by the marina, which is an enterprise fund, right? So the portions of a bond that would construct any facilities for the marina would be the responsibility of the marina.
Thank you. We don't do this. We lose the opportunity for the passenger ferry service. We don't have a hotel that, as you were explaining earlier, generates revenue that can drive our economy downtown. We're talking about SR3 possibly being located here where visitors and residents could view the animals for their care, which would also bring additional people in eating, and all of these people would be eating in a restaurant and shop in our shops.
Is that a question?
What kind of impact would that be to the community if we don't do these things?
I think we just gather again in 10 years and talk about what we could do with the marina.
Thank you. Okay, next round. Deputy Mayor Buxton.
So with every option that's been displayed on the screen tonight, is there any portion of the public access to the waterfront, would there be a possibility of any of that being removed from the public? Meaning, like in this picture, pretend that we know that the beach park waterfront is available, but starting right there, would any of the bulkhead parking with one of the options looked like there's a possibility that that whole segment would be taken away from public use? So I wanted to know, is that true? Or would any options take any of that waterfront walkable corridor space away?
If I understand your question, the answer would be no.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So you mentioned an Oxford consultant's study on hotels. Could we get that, please?
I'll see if that can be made available.
Thank you. You also mentioned that you had costs, or at least a first-order approximation on cost of these various things, and could we get those as well?
I don't recall saying that.
I believe you did say that you had some, ideas of costs on all these different projects. I'm pretty sure.
But okay. So there are different numbers that have been floated over time, and some of it being a function of the cost of money, some of it being a function of the cost of construction these days. So those numbers have all shifted. So I'm hesitant to provide anything that has not been, vetted, because I don't want that number to become the order of the day if it's not the accurate number.
Okay, well then, just to be clear, the water that is, the outfall on 223rd, it's not any less treated than other stormwater within the city. I mean, it's comparable to, we're legally handling the water according to state and, county law, correct? I mean, this would be an improvement.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Very good, thanks. That's it.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, just a couple more questions, each with 7 or 8 different subtopics. But no. Kind of following up with the question that was asked, the adaptive purpose building or boat storage building, is the footprint that we saw on the slides fairly well determined? And while we're not directing you to go do anything yet, that open to green roofs and things that really mitigate against the views from the condos?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that and that's part of what we want to go see some other successful dry stack storage facilities. But I don't think we know that yet in terms of what, cost. We would want to do something that was structurally sound. We would want to use forklifts for the boats that were electrified, so it would reduce noise, enhance the ecological consciousness of doing that. And then the size of the facility and the types of boats, length of boats, so forth, that it could house, those are all yet to be determined. But I would just want to add one thing, and it's important. It goes back to this question about CSR. It's fantastic that you have a dry stack storage right next door to a boat yard. You can call up and have your boat and maintenance, change oil, whatever you need, and you don't ever have to show up. It can just be taken over there, worked on, and returned. So, but at any rate, yeah, no, I don't think we've gone into that level of depth of the analysis, just some ballpark.
Okay. And the second question is that if we do the public development portion of this, primarily the steps, but some of the other amenities down there, do those in and of itself drive the economic engine of downtown, do you think, or are we missing an opportunity?
No, I think that those absolutely drive the economic options. Because the ideas, and I think one of the things, the thinking being originally behind a hotel was that, 80% of the people, the last time we looked, that utilized the marina and the parking and the beach park and all that. They don't live in Des Moines. This is a regional value. And there are times, I know Scott Wilkins, our harbor master, has told me at times they've had people fly over from Europe to SeaTac and lease a boat at the marina, private, lease, sail the sound for whatever length of time, and then go home. So this is the opportunity to become both a national, international destination. And it seemed the hotel fit with the opportunities associated with that. But I think, we were very encouraged by the ferry service in terms of the impact it had on a number of businesses in the downtown. So we would anticipate that that kind of activity would not only increase, probably multiply. So I think we would be serving our local businesses and future businesses well by doing that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So speaking of local businesses and the quarter deck has obviously been a success there, and that was done. The city supported that and did a lot of work to help make sure that was a successful business, and it was a business that was put in to kind of test the market, so to speak. So my question is that are the different pads that were originally talked about still going to be a part of this, and as that grows, or what will we do to attract and enhance and support local small businesses that already exist, but ones that may want to relocate down to the marina floor to help them be successful, like we did with the quarter deck?
I think we just go through the same process of identifying what their needs are, looking at ways we can support that. How can we help them in our efforts? How can they be incorporated into activities the city is undertaking? It's pretty much the same process.
Okay, so thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is clarification, and then I have a statement. So I just want to
You'll have the opportunity for a statement later.
No, I want clarification on the fact that there has been discussion, yet nothing has been set in stone about a hotel on the North Bulkhead or against the hill, that it's a building that could possibly be a hotel, could possibly be commercial, could possibly be business-oriented, could possibly be work lofts, could possibly be anything else. It has not been determined that it would be a hotel. It would just be a building built by a private developer, and the public portion of it is the steps and the adapted purpose building.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Oxford, did you want to go for your last round?
Sure. So I guess the difficulty I'm having is, and the question was asked earlier, is are we going to be afforded at any time any kind of idea about what these various options are going to cost? Because, we're talking about the possibility of a parking garage, we're talking about the possibility of a hotel at parcel A, we're talking about a possibility of one out on the point. It seems like we're just try this and we'll see whether the other stuff falls in line. And it would be extremely beneficial to have some idea of what we're talking about overall as far as cost.
Well, I think, Councilmember, before any money were spent on any capital investment, the council would know exactly what the estimates are. We're just not there yet.
Any other questions?
ask my question.
Okay, just want to make sure you had one. I was going to give you a second. I have two questions, and then we'll be going to public comment. As far as, say we do the development of the steps, the adaptive purpose building, and then it leaves up the options. What does that say to developers if we've made that investment?
Well, you know, I haven't introduced, I think, I still see Robert there. Yeah, I haven't had the chance to introduce Robert Holmes. Robert Holmes is one of our consultants. Robert, sorry, could we, yeah, there he is. And Robert was very instrumental in developing the harbor steps in Seattle. So that's been a great assistance to us looking at ways to do the marina steps. But one of the things that Robert, who knows a lot about this, one of the things that I believe is that there are two critical components in doing public-private development. And we're focusing now on the public side. But essentially, what it is you have to establish the public domain. You have to have the community, private citizens understand what is theirs. And if you go down to the marina, the public owns the promenades. And those are great, and those are expanded. And so then public investment determines what the development patterns will be. And so what it tells developers, we spent $12 million on the bulkhead. We spent about $1.2 million on Soundview Park. We've spent money. The ferry service was extraordinary from the perspective of the city of Des Moines did that ourselves. We did not rely on state money. We did not rely on federal money. And so all the other agencies were totally pleased about that. But the private sector was very pleased that we had taken the initiative. We didn't come up with a plan, put it on a bookcase. We said, let's do this. We can try it. What happens? And we learned from it. So the message to the private sector, if we take upon ourselves to continue this investment, is Des Moines is open for business. We aspire to better quality, opportunities, infrastructure, access, mobility, all of that. We want to emphasize multimodal transportation and resilience, sustainability in the face of climate change, do with environmental things with, for example, 223rd, enhance water quality released into the sound, celebrate opportunities like SR3. I see Casey's here. And so the message it sends is, yeah, we want to do this right. We want, at the time, we want private participation. We will seek that. But it sends the right message.
Okay, my last question. Can you talk about the pros and cons, just because I want to talk about this so it's on our public's mind and our council's mind. Selling versus leasing and the pros and cons of each.
Well, I think, based on our past experience, if we lease it, we'll pay for it anyways. And if we sell it, then there's a transaction and there's an advantage to the city and advantage to a developer. So I think from where we are is that I'm not sure that leasing is a successful strategy.
Thank you. All right. All right, it's now time for the public comment. I just want to remind those participating that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks will become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be removed from the meeting. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Today we have many wishing to comment, and I apologize in advance, but when we get to the 3-minute point, I'm going to be cutting you off just so we get an opportunity for everybody to speak. So I just want to put that out there. I want to remind several of you members that didn't sign up to speak that you can send the council an email this week or next, and those will be considered as well and added to this information. I'm going to call 3 names at the podium at a time just to keep it moving so as people, as they navigate through the crowd, it's a little bit more efficient. I will say this, though. I hope there's been a lot of clarification tonight, but if there is a case where some misinformation stated in a comment, we may interject and just correct that so everybody's informed. With that being said, the first 3 I'm going to call up is Mr. Eldon Davis, Ms. Christine Puzas, and Mr. Bill Linscott. Mr. Eldon Davis, you are first, sir.
All right, thank you, Des Moines City Council, for letting us air our comments. I'm going to start with, I'm Eldon Davis. My wife and I moved here in 1963. So if you're not good in arithmetic, that's almost 60 years. So we've enjoyed our time at Des Moines, particularly when our kids were growing up and even now as senior adults, going down to the Marina. It has a lot of interesting things to see, not so many things to do, but you're there to look out at the waterfront, watch all the boats, watch the fishermen out on the pier, and I could go on and on. And all those good things seem to come to a little bit of a stumbling block when in November, where I live, we heard that the council was thinking about a hotel, I call it the north parking lot, and then retail spaces up there, to the left of where it shows those stairs. Well, that was rather shocking, but nonetheless, I proposed some questions that you can answer at some point in time, and I deleted some of them because I'm trying to get under 3 minutes. First question for y'all. Why change what has been so good for so many people for so many years? 2, are there any new ideas post 9/27, which is what I was basing my story on? And I'm not sure because we haven't heard much about the hotel and the retail. What schedule would there be to begin the process of the big changes, not these stairs, and when would it be finished? Specifically, what features of the marina would be changed or eliminated? What is the purpose of the pavilion that was on the diagram last September? What may be the features of the hotel and retail stores that are different than the present stores around the community? And how will they be affected? Holy smokes, the time's going. Will the farmer's market and the ferries be affected? Financially, the impact on city budget, boat mortgage costs, parking costs, citizens' property and sales tax, any compensation for the citizens who will lose their views, any estimate on the number of spots that will be lost to the citizens on the north end, meaning that big gray area. My closing thoughts: what makes the marina so special is this wide openness and essential no obstacles blocking the wonderful views. Adding hotels and retail spaces, maybe parking garage, will drastically destroy the present uniqueness of the marina. Please give our thoughts serious consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Moving on to Ms. Puzas.
Okay, there was a lot of questions posed today. By the way, thank you all for showing up. It's nice to see the public here. Okay, so you guys are talking about an adaptive purpose building, and you're showing the steps. Quickly thought, the adaptive purpose building was supposed to contain the stacked boat storage, dry storage. If it went all the way across under the condos with the proper bulkhead type retaining wall to make sure that those 48 units don't come down, then you could, instead of doing the steps, so to speak, you could do what's been used at Pike Place Market for 100 years that they're changing the design of. And that could work for your storage and for your stores. Also, parking lot. You have your fishermen who go there every night. They've been pissed off that the gates don't come down. And understandable. They pay $100 plus a year to park there. They do like that they have cameras. They need more cameras. They even need cameras on the pier. You guys need to put closed caption out there because it's really easy to look up a camera at a certain time and get whatever's needed. Reason for my statement on that one is I had a friend who was mugged and stabbed, and the knife happened to be tainted with hepatitis C. Sure, it wouldn't have stopped him getting hepatitis C, but we would have caught the person who gave it to him. You have lots of great plans. You need to listen to your people. I said before, your assets, your number one assets are your residents. They have time. That's the most valuable thing of any one person. They have knowledge, vast knowledge, all different areas. You need to listen to them. You need to ask them. Reach out. If you touch on something that's an expertise of someone, they're tickled to help you at no cost. Feel free to utilize that asset and stop playing chutes and ladders with our public assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pouzos. Mr. Linscott, will you come up? I'm going to call, next to get in line would be Victoria Andrews, Sean Daly, and Mr. Chris Tollison. Did I say that correctly? Anyway, we'll get it corrected when you come up to the podium. With that, Mr. Linscott, you have the floor.
Hey, thank you, Mayor, and council members and everybody here tonight. I really appreciate this briefing and this schedule and this session you've had. It should have been there on September 27th, because I think that briefing had stuff that just got people really excited. And you at least laid out in context, you know, the thinking. So thanks for doing that. And on the hotel, my questions or my comments actually changed. I appreciate having the presentation material first, so when we come up, we can be more honed in on things that we think are relevant. You mentioned the hotel as being kind of an economic, boom for a location. I think that's true, and I'm for a boutique hotel. I told you that in the earlier comments we made. I wasn't for putting it in that Marina spot, because I'm convinced you put that in any spot in the Marina district, you're going to have great views, and you're in close proximity to a gorgeous spot that's getting developed. It doesn't have to be on that spot or even in parcel A. If it doesn't fit in parcel A, because you all approved that. We talked about, there's no plan for a hotel. There was for a moment. Sounds like we don't now. And that's good, because I think we need to look at the broader scope there. On the creek and the adaptive purpose building, a lot of definition needs to happen there. And I think, I'm wondering how you're going to keep the community involved in those ideas as you move forward. I think the creek it ought to be developed in context with an alternative that would be just landscaping. There's a big cost difference that I think is out there. And when you look at costs, the general cost, I've heard that said, it would be good to get that general cost out to us. I don't know, what's that ADP building going to look like, Just get a sense, $50 million and up on the water side, what's the land side look like? Because all that's going to get laid in, and all of that's got to be serviced a debt. And you get some feel for the debt over time. And I think that part would either make sure we had the right plans in place or change our plans so they're affordable. Let's see. General costs, creek. My gosh, I think I got through that list. Thank you.
It's kind of a new record for you, Mr. Linscott. Miss Victoria Andrews, you have the floor.
Thank you. I represent Marina Estates on the corner of 6th and 223rd, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, and it's 36 homeowners. And I've been meeting with several others, and I appreciate that this was all done up front now, too, because my presentation has changed as well. I would agree that we need to take a look at the Shoreline Management Plan, because it is very specific about what can and cannot be done. I also picked up on that Oxford study on hotels. I would love to see that myself. Given that it is going to become apparently a panacea of economic development, I would kind of like to know if the Marina Inn is included in that, because it's never really busy. There it is on 7th. Is it driving the economy, bringing people there in any way in order to entice people here? I think the Marina steps are fabulous, and I was not a fan, and now I am. Given that whatever decision the council makes will potentially impact the community and its residents for generations to come, when will a special purpose Marina committee be created to give citizens a continuing voice in what happens? And that pretty much does it for me. I beat Bill. Thank you.
Mr. Sean Daly, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Looks like I don't see any maximum occupancy signs in here, but we're close. Councilmember Pennington?
He's a fireman, folks.
Thank you. The North Marina parking lot and seawall project is nearing completion. It's beautiful. Let's not stop there. My name is Sean Daly, 25-year resident here in Des Moines, 20 years as a homeowner, and now 5 years as a condo owner at South Shores Condos at 22315 6th Ave South. Puts us due east of the Harbor Master Building and the quarterdeck. We represent 48 units and almost 100 residents, which is one of the largest condo associations in the Marina District. I'm also the current vice president on our HOA board and one of the biggest small business supporters in the Marina District. Says my liver. By the way, I do have a hard time believing that local business is supported by 80% of non-business residents. Somebody fact check that. Ferry boat, the passenger-only ferry boat, wonderful addition to the marina. However, the city did subsidize that pilot project for to the tune of $175,000. But not one of those dollars went to supporting small business in Des Moines for that pilot project, which was the point. Pardon the marina pun, but the council missed the boat on that one. Moving forward, that route should be considered a Gig Harbor, Ruston, and Des Moines route, not Seattle and back. Get the other two cities involved to help subsidize it, charge $20 a round trip, and watch that pilot project soar. Marina Master Plan, there are just too many moving parts. Yes, this clarified some things today, and we need some short and long-term goals, but these moving parts and changes to the moving parts creates confusion, and that's why nothing ever gets started. Marina Master Steps, or Marina Steps, I'm sorry. Who's not in favor of access to the marina? The architectural drawings look wonderful. I'm sold on it, but I mean, I heard it's $300,000 just, we're looking for a $300,000 grant just to do a study on that. And believe it or not, we actually have marina steps. They're in the middle of the marina. They're super secret. I challenge you to find them. But build some marina steps, widen them a little bit, bring them straight down, and there you go. This is a wonderful presentation, but this is 5 years down the line. Adaptive purpose building. A lot of unknowns. Noise nuisances seems to be the biggest concern. Forklifts and reverse alarms, no thanks. Not to mention noise nuisance from HVAC systems, and the other concern is the big footprint. We've heard 150 to 300 feet with a nice green roof. That's the size of an NFL football field. We don't want an Amazon warehouse with a huge green chia pet down there. Bigger is not better. My biggest fear is it's going to be half empty.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Daly, just a couple clarifications the city manager wanted to point out.
Yeah, I did not say that 80% of small business was supported by out-of-town people. I said visitors to the marina are about 80% out of town.
Fact check.
And, okay, and the second thing is that between the EATS program and the CARES program and the ARPA money, we've distributed over $1 million to small businesses in our city.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. I'm going to call the next three before Mr. Tollerson comes up. It'll be Mr. Michael Rhodes, Miss Kathy Scott, and Miss Jan Magnuson. So with that, Chris, and I get your last name always wrong. Could you? Tollefson. So you kind of made the F and the E and the S kind of like one, so it was a little difficult. Anyway, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm representing the Cliff House Condo Association, and there were many questions that we were looking forward to having answered tonight. Some were and some weren't. The mayor started with his quote on insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. And I feel that a major portion of this presentation was something done over and over and over again. But I did get the quote at the beginning of the meeting where you said the city's in a better position to pursue capital and infrastructure projects through public investment and not seek a private partner at this time. I'd like to know what this time means, because you're still talking about private investment for a hotel and for some office buildings and restaurant and bar or whatever. One of the questions that we wanted answered was when they decided or identified and approved a boutique hotel, which you haven't approved yet. Okay, well, you're looking at a boutique hotel. Was a market demand study performed demonstrating the need for the hotel in the area? I haven't heard that yet. And that hopefully, I also was looking to hear a financial analysis of each of the different components of what you're looking forward to, and a time frame. Like, is this steps 2 years? Is the hotel 4 years? You know, kind of thing. What's the time frame out that the city's looking to use? And also, I feel that the city is leading, well, this is me, leading businesses away from the downtown core, down into the marina floor, and not up where they should be. I would love to see a stronger city core. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Tolleson. I promise I won't mispronounce it again. Mr. Rhodes, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilman, you answered my question. So I came here to talk about financials. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done, continuing to explore the financials and what the costs are going to be so that we know how to prepare for bond issues and so on and so forth. So I urge you to bring that out as fast as you can. And you also, last time, Mr. Mayor, you talked about a holistic approach to this. Well, this is not a holistic approach. This is a dissection. A holistic approach is systems management. We would talk about the hotel, the stairs, the adaptive purpose, the hotel, all that, and talk about that as a holistic approach to try and solve the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Moving on to Ms. Kathy Scott, a proud Washington State Cougar.
Go Cougs. So good evening, City Council. I'm Kathy Scott, and I live on Marine View Drive, and my family bought the house in 1962. They bought property there, and that's how long we've been here. And first, I want to thank all the members of the council for all the hard work and diligence that you have put forth in the redevelopment of the marina. We're seeing changes in the town, positive changes, which are exciting to observe. So one of the things I have to say is that I am not in favor of building a proposed hotel in the north parking lot in the Marina District. I'm more than happy to support building of a hotel, but not in the marina. My husband and I walk the marina almost every day. Our journey begins at Anthony's. We look at the boats on our walk. We talk about how wonderful it would be to own a boat and which ones are for sale. As we pass the Harbor Master House and the quarterdeck, we look to our left. The view is incredible. Panoramic sweeping view of Tacoma, Maury Island, Vashon Island, the Olympics, Bainbridge Island, Three Tree Point, and occasionally you can see the Fauntleroy Ferry. It's absolutely stunning, and I feel that this open space must be preserved. We do not want to lose this beautiful view to a building, and that is exactly what you would see as a building. And I'm going to say proposed because I wrote this before we had the presentation. My question is, why can we not consider building a hotel closer to the businesses along Greenview Drive? Thriving businesses would encourage visitors to spend their money locally. Lack of parking and flow of traffic would be other items I hope the council would discuss before making a final decision on the location of the hotel. Where will the guests park their cars? Available parking in the marina is always an issue. In the summer, we will need additional parking for those using the fast ferry, plus shoppers at the Des Moines Farmers Market. The marina is already congested with lack of available parking. The flow of traffic is another item to consider as we add more cars to the area. I agree with a hotel. It would be wonderful, but why in the Marina District? Thank you.
Please, I'm sorry, hold your applause, this is a business meeting. Miss Jan Magnuson, you have the floor, and while you're coming up, is it Julie Somerville or July? And you're gonna pass? Either Steve or Susan Gagerberg, or both of you guys, and Miss Sharon Morehouse. Okay, with that, and all apologies, you have the floor, Jan.
No apology necessary. I was just gonna say what that nice lady said. That was so great. So I was just gonna talk really quickly about the proposed hotel in the north parking lot. And that's the thing I want to focus on, that why I'm here tonight. It's so wonderful. Thank you all for having us on council, and thank you everybody for showing up, because that's my big worry right there. I'm retired 30 years Des Moines Police, I think many of you know, and I teach dog training classes up at the field house. I've been around this area my whole life, and I'm in my 60s. I won't tell you exact, but you know, we love it here. We love it here, you guys. And we love having the businesses coming into our Marina district, and we love our open spaces in the Marina and these beautiful views and all our lovely areas around here. Please don't build a big, I call it a monstrosity, building in our north parking lot. That's my main focus. Having the buildings that bring in wonderful businesses in our Marina district, which is steps from the Marina, I think that's great. I mean, I come from a small business family. I'm all about the small businesses. I think that's wonderful. But I just, please don't put it there in our Marina, blocking all those views. I walk my dogs almost every day, and it's just such a lovely area, and I envision in my mind this big monstrosity building there, and it just makes me want to cry. So please don't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Magnuson. Moving on to Mr. Gagerberg.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm speaking for my wife and myself, unless my wife jumps up and says something, in which case I'm only speaking for myself, so just so you know. I'm sorry, what was that?
We know.
Okay. First point on my particular agenda, getting serious here, is the hotel. No on that hotel. Anything that we build on that area, especially the north parking lot, we lose the marina. We lose that land, we lose that access. We've basically taken public space and converted it to private interests. I do not want to lose that. That hotel can go up above just fine. I need to be sold on just how a hotel will be beneficial at this point, based upon what I've seen in the rest of the city in terms of the hotel or hotels that are there. I'm not seeing a lot of business. Maybe just a matter of advertising. I don't know. The adaptive purpose building, that's kind of a work in progress in my brain, and certainly I understand in the council's, so I would want to see more on that to see where that goes. The steps ramp, I like that, especially if there is an ADA aspect of it that is taken care of. That's something that's near and dear to my heart, disability access for that space. Water feature, you'll have to sell me on that particular thing. In other words, if I look directly west from the marina, I see a really nice water feature. It's called Puget Sound. And you're going to be hard pressed to make something better. Trust me. Boat storage, yes, we have a lot of boaters there, as long as we're serving the percentage of boaters, not disserving other people that come down to the marina to look, to visit, to fish, whatever. Retail space, within reason, I'm definitely for. I think it would help bring the space alive more, maybe space for the Saturday markets. Certainly, I don't want to lose space for things like festivals, car shows, and so on. Those are things that are very valuable that we can't do in other areas of the city. This is a choice area, so those are my points. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Morehouse, while you move up, the two remaining, Nancy Core and, I'm sorry, I can't see your I see your first name, but I can't pronounce it. Matthias is the last name? Is that you, sir? Okay. So if Nancy, Miss Nancy Core would come up and get in line there, then we'll,
You can just let me go.
oh, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you for letting me know. All right. Ms. Morehouse, again, apologies. You have the floor.
Hi, I'm Sharon Morehouse. I moved over here in 1963 and have lived in Des Moines most of until now. I just want to say I'm against the hotel at the Marina, anywhere. I don't know why we're not talking about the other end of the Marina. We're only talking about this end. I mean, maybe a hotel could go down there, back where the SR hospital is.
Please, folks, everybody's opinion here who gets up to speak.
Okay, I'm not in favor of a hotel at the Marina at all. What I am in favor of is focusing a little more on the safety of this community and maintaining what we have here already and just taking better care of our environment, as well as everything else. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you, Ms. Morehouse. I just need to remind everybody that everybody has the right to say what they feel. We can't applaud or jeer or anything like that. We want them to be able to be comfortable in this environment to say what they feel. Everybody has an opinion here, and we need to stress that happens. With that, Mr. Matthias, you have did I pronounce that correct? Matthias? Oh, okay. I'm going to let, okay, but, so go ahead and come up onto the podium and you'll have 3 minutes. I see your topic is not related to the.
I'm going to avoid that. That's going to go at the end. We're going to talk
okay,
about this.
so just so you know, the comments have to be about the issue today.
I read that, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Good afternoon. I own a business currently in Des Moines. I have a little small restaurant. We do not promote it. We don't do anything like that. We do very well. There's talks about small businesses here. I was going to talk about something totally different, but it's just, for me, it's mind-blowing. How we concentrated in a hotel that it's not worth it. I mean, me, myself, would not spend $500 in a hotel there, and I have the money to spend that. There's no restaurants there to spend $500. There's no bars there. They're nice bars to spend $500. There's no real businesses where we can spend money there. There's no actual business that attracts people from the outside except my restaurant. Literally, I have people from Everett, Linwood, Joint Base, Lewis, McCord eat at my restaurant, you know? So unless you have businesses that thrive and actually attract people, which would be like a restaurant, a bar, something unique, that's not gonna work. It's a ridiculous idea. So we need to impose small businesses. The core, whatever the drive is, Marina Drive or whatever, needs to be renewed. It's ugly. Like, yeah, I don't know why we're spending millions of dollars in this when we could just remodel everything and make it look nice. So yeah, I mean, I myself shop here because I'm a big like small business supporter. I shop at B&E a lot because I cook my own things. I eat my own things. That's the only business I go to. I don't know any other business that sells things I really want except mine, and I close at 5. So, I mean, I think all this talk about hotels and retail space is ridiculous. I mean, there's no retail space. It does not exist. I, myself, as a private investor, would not want to invest in this city. I do. But the only reason why I want to, and I probably will, is because I'm buying buildings myself. You guys are not building new things that attract people from the outside. Des Moines is a cool place because it's in the center of, like, between Seattle and Tacoma, right? I have people stop at my restaurant because they're driving to Seattle. They get hungry midway. So it would be nice if we had nicer restaurants, nicer bars, nicer parks, you know, stuff like that. But, I mean, we're fighting over a hotel that will never happen because it's ridiculous. I mean, what are you gonna fit 10 rooms in there? And I mean, they're gonna have to be $1,000 each? I'm not gonna spend that. I mean, I stay at the nicer hotels in downtown and it's not worth it. So, yeah, unless you bring actual good food and like real entrepreneurs, it's gonna stay the same. That's it.
Thank you, sir. All right. Did you want to close up anything, or? All right. We're gonna go to council member comments, and basically we're gonna treat it like board and committee reports. We're gonna go in the order as I have listed. Sir, could we close the door if you're gonna have a conversation? Thank you. I apologize. We're gonna go through and every council member will have a chance. Keep it to about 3-4 minutes if you can. And with that, we're gonna start with Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you know, 4 minutes. I object to this whole thing. It is wonderful that, you know, you're getting some information tonight, and it is a lovely thing that people, you know, are like, oh, great, you know, this hotel seems to be on hold. But the notion that it was even surprise on 927 and this format now is something you should not want. And the idea that we would be making any kind of decision next week on all of this stuff is, the guy who just left, I love that guy. The thing is, speaking about history, is that we have had this notion of you know, if we build something, it will be the magnet, okay, for a very long time. And if you don't believe it, you just go and look at that Des Moines Creek Business Park. That whole thing, which actually, it makes oodles of money for the Port of Seattle. And it makes zilcho pretty much for us, but it looks shiny and sanitary, and people make all kinds of assumptions of what it does. But man, we've had 3 mayors, Scheckler, I mean, God bless his soul, but it was always this idea, I'll buy you a lunch at the thousands of people who will, you know, come out of there every day and eat lunch and come down to the marina. We have that, it's like in our bones of people who run for office here, okay? And it's been going on for a long time that there's always this magnet thing that will somehow be a signal to developers, and they will come here, and that will be the, you know, so in other words, the hotel net won't make money, the business park won't make money, but somehow that will be the magnet, okay? And the council has been studying a hotel since at least 2012. I mean, you can go back if you really want to and watch the videos and so on. And our public engagement has just been, it's just you didn't know about it. You know, if we were proud of this, you'd have this big 4x8 poster at City Hall that would say, here's what we're planning on doing. Here's the vision. And no, you know, because nobody shows up at city council meetings until, you know, 11:59. And the guy who left, he actually had it right. I owned a restaurant, and it's always been my belief that if you have a unique and superior product or service, that is the magnet that draws the universe to you. It really doesn't matter what the building looks like. It's nice if the building looks nice, but basically if you have something that the public wants, they will stop in. That's just my feeling about it. The finances and everything, the idea that we would be discussing any of this stuff. And I get accused about misinformation and all this stuff, but you know, I make educated guesses. For example, the city of Burien is doing a 5-acre bioswale kind of a filtering thing, okay, and it's going to be $2.5 million. And so I look at 60 acres and I just do the math, and maybe that's the stupidest thing since stupid was invented, but what else are you gonna do when they tell you in 7 days you're gonna have to make a decision on this stuff, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Moving on to Mr. Pennington.
I'm glad I didn't take your advice on the drill a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, so I say this every week, and there's usually a handful of people here, but I very, very much appreciate you being here. I appreciate your voices being heard. That's important to me that we have that kind of contact. And I wish this was like this every week. And I'm not just saying that, I'm telling you, to get engaged in your community is important. It's very important. And, I grew up in this community like probably some of you did, and been here a long time. Used to climb over the guardrail in our own little path that went down to the sandbar where the marina now sits. To our architect, I would say, if you're going to replace the plants as what they were, don't put in the poison ivy or the poison oak, because that was tough down our path. Every now and then we'd get caught up in that. This is a really emotional topic. It really means a lot to everybody. It certainly means a lot to me. And I've had the privilege to watch that piece of our community evolve from a sandbar to a marina, to a residential space, to a commercial space. And it continues to evolve and change, and I'm sure that it will long after I'm gone from this earth, and there will be those changes. And I would say that we need to really, it's a good community conversation, because we all own a piece of that. And there's a lot of different opinions, and I hope we get it right. Sometimes you don't know that, and you have to go and go with your best information that you have. And it is a really emotional topic. There's a lot of great memories there for all of us. And so, it's my desire that we don't destroy it, but I think there's opportunities to maybe enhance it a bit. And so let's take a look. We've posed a lot of questions to the staff, and I know we'll get answers back for those. And thank you again so much for being here and expressing your opinions. So thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Moving on to Councilmember Steinmetz.
I also want to thank everybody for being here. I think this is great. It would be wonderful if we had this kind of turnout all the time, but we don't. But also there needs to be acknowledged that over the last few weeks, we have had literally hundreds of emails and comments and questions, and really there's an outpouring, and it's because people really care. People really care about the marina. And, every single election, I've lived here nearly a quarter of a century, every single election, every candidate has talked about their vision for the marina. And there's a lot of overlap on that. Some people have it a little bit differently than others, but everybody wants to see the marina developed into something more modern, more community-friendly, more welcoming to people coming into our marina. And that's what this process is all about. And we have some wonderful ideas there. I think that we have a tendency to get bogged down either by, not in my backyard because I don't want to lose the special thing that I have. And I understand that. If you bought in the marina and your condo looks out over, you don't want a building in front of it. And I kind of get how that is, but You know, my house has a pretty nice view, but the house right next to me can go up another 35, or can go up to 35 feet, and that would block a lot of my view, and there's not a thing I can do about it. Unfortunately, we buy land for what we see, not what we anticipate in the future. And I think that as a council, we need to do our best to try to preserve as much of the views for the citizens that we can, but we also have to balance that out against this idea that we want a modern marina that serves all of the citizens, that helps drive some of the economics. So a lot of people tend to go, well, we need more information. We need, and get into this paralysis by analysis, which is what we've been doing, you know, since at least the UW study, probably even before that. And this should be an exciting time, frankly. We're actually going to do something. This council is going to move forward with changing the marina in some way. I really honestly believe that. And we will give direction next week based upon what we hear from you in the audience, from what we hear of the people who are viewing it. And that direction will go to the city manager to put together then the particular financials of how we can do what and how we can do this, because that direction has not been established yet. There have been a lot of ideas out there, and obviously some of them really got people excited, and may they die their own death. But this is an exciting time. We're going to make some changes that this community has been waiting for an awfully long time. And I think we all need to get an understanding of the excitement of what's to come, and it won't be perfect. Nobody's going to love every single idea, and I hope we can accommodate as many people as we possibly can, because that's what our job is up here as council. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for who's ever out there watching on YouTube or Channel 21. We do appreciate it. We do hear you. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz. Moving on to Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to thank all of you for coming out. I suspect that what drove you out here more than anything else is the fact that, surprise, we're putting a hotel in the middle of the marina. Okay? I've just heard about paralysis by analysis. What analysis do we have? We haven't got any estimates. It's just all, you know, it seems like the one thing we're talking about doing is we're going to do those steps, but we have no idea what the rest of it's going to cost. We have no other ideas as far as, okay, is it going to be private or public development? It's been, you know, the comment was made by Councilmember Pennington, excuse me, that, you know, it's great that you're getting engaged in your community. Well, we have ways of doing this, and other cities have it. They have planning commissions where some of this wouldn't be a surprise. It was coming through the planning commission because people would have been studying these things. Just, I don't know, we seem to be allergic to any kind of public input on these things. The big question on all of this is it even feasible? We have no cost estimates to judge this by. Everything is like, well, we could do this, or we might be able to do that, or something else. This plan at this point, I think, is totally half-baked, and it's really half-baked in consideration of what's just gone on with COVID. Look at what's happening to downtown Seattle. It's emptying out. People are changing their patterns of what they're doing. We need to step back and, I think, throw this back to a planning commission and say, what are we going to do here? What's the current, you know, situation? The other thing that I think we have to be concerned about is the marina is, and particularly the public spaces that we're talking about, is truly unique. There are approximately 1 million people in South King County. There are only five public accesses to the water. Seahurst is pretty much, you know, you have to go wind down a hill and everything, get down there. It's a very narrow beach. We've got here in Des Moines, we've got the beach park and, you know, the marina, which great open space that you can do things on the water. I mean, one of the great things that everybody's been doing lately is snapping pictures of the sunsets. This is a great place to come and look at the sunsets, okay? So it's unique there. Redondo has not got, Redondo's, basically a one-lane road and not much you can do down there. And then the other two places you've got in South King County are the two state parks. And those are limited in what you can do in those. We have a unique opportunity here to do something that is going to attract an audience of 1 million people, not 90 a night in a hotel. But even that it's all iffy. We have no idea what's going on. I don't think we're at the point that we can make any kind of a decision. We've got to go back and look at this thing. And people will say, oh, well, we've been looking at this for how many years? Well, this is not the solution. And the other thing is that we have not involved the public. You guys have a right to say it's your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxeter. Moving on to Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. And for the sake of sounding redundant, I do appreciate the fact that the council chambers is full tonight and all the emails we've been getting. It's refreshing, to say the least. But I was on the council in 2014, I believe, when the contract was signed with Good Fit. And that was by urging of the public and all of the public meetings we had to go with a developer. And if they had not backed out and the city was not in the financial position, which was terrible at that time, when they asked us to fund the project that they had proposed down on the marina, we would be having a very different conversation right now. We are looking to the future and grasping and grabbing the public portion of this to try to make it the best we can at the time we can, and to set the table for future development by doing the public portion of this that has been looked at for the last 20 plus years and has been given input by the public, and controlling our own destiny. We are able to control the private section of this. What has been missed is that there has been misinformation about a hotel. That has been one of the aspects, and I tell you, if you look at the Des Moines history books, it has been an issue and has been on the table for the last 50 plus years as a hotel down at the marina. We are not the first that have looked at this. It is there. The fact of the matter is we are talking about a private building that could be anything. We are grabbing the public portion of that and controlling our own destiny. We are making dry stack storage. We are taking the smaller boats out of the water. We are taking the long list of larger boats and adapting our marina when marinas are not allowed to be built in the sound at all anymore. We are making it work for us and for the city. So I urge you, any of you, to reach out to me about the North Bulkhead and the serious implications and issues that would actually make it pretty much undevelopable by any standards. I am in construction. I know what would need to be done there, and the return on investment is almost nil. So I just urge you to look back. All we directed staff to do was to take a look at if it was possible to develop that one parcel in the North Bulkhead. The studies will come back. You'll see it is possible, but for a very large dollar amount that almost no developer is willing to do. So that being said, thank you all for being out here tonight. I appreciate it. Contact me, anything you need to know, I'll help you out. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to the staff who worked tirelessly to produce some of this information that we've received tonight. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you being here. We've all said that. I do want to apologize. I didn't respond to anybody in the last 24 hours, so there are a lot of emails still waiting in my inbox. But we have this presentation, and I did want to mention that a little bit. It's not like the public and we have no information. If we didn't have any information at all, you wouldn't be sitting here. And we have gotten a lot of information. It's a really different world than it was 10 years ago. And I read public comment on Facebook every day. I read on my email public comment every day. And you guys are all here tonight. So it might not be as complete as some people want, but I feel like I am super, and I meet with anybody who ever wants me. You call me and want to meet with me, I'll meet with you. I'll talk to you on my private cell phone. All that to say that we don't have any public comment in accordance with the information that we have, we've gotten quite a bit. And I also want to make a comment about the input and age group. I only received a couple of emails from anybody under 40, and those people were super pro hotel in that location. And the reason why, they have a different mindset about what's coming up in their society that they're raising their children in. And so there is a little bit of a different perspective in this up and coming urban environment that we live in. It just can't, we are forced by the pressures on us. We cannot remain a sleepy little town. And I apologize to those if you really want that, but I made a different promise to this community when I knocked on about 2,500 doors, and I just can't advocate for a sleepy little town. I just have to find the best options I can for a dynamic destination community. That's what I promised. Moving forward though, shortly, for me, the hotel in that north parking lot location is off the table for me right now, unless I get like this whole other set of information. However, I did want to make an observation that there are existing parcels there. And as long as there's pressure from the public to your council, whether it's this one or a future one, to create a vibrant economic culture in this city, the council is going to seek the highest and best use for waterfront property on the Salish Sea, and a parking lot is not going to be it. I'm just saying. So what is it going to be? What is the highest and best use of that? Well, the public and the future council, utilizing a robust engagement process, is going to have to figure that out. It can be, but I'll tell you what it could. This council's committed to non-residential, but that doesn't mean a future council will be. And so it could be another set of condos. It could be a hotel. It could be a park with grass. The future public and council is going to have to figure that out. But it's not a guarantee that it won't be a view blocker, right? So for now, I'm excited about some of these plans. I'm very pro some of these plans we saw tonight. And some of these things are going to be a gift to our residents and our environment. It's one more step forward in creating a vibrant destination community, and that's what I promised. So thank you, all of you, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Really quick, I'm not going to follow the normal precedent. I'm going to open the floor to City Manager Matthias for his closing comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We really appreciate, like I can say, the opportunity to share with you what in our view is accurate information. And I continue to hear comments that, don't build the hotel. I'm a little confused because apparently 90 people in a hotel is a problem, but 1 million people visiting the marina is okay. I'm not, I have to work with that. But the point is that nothing's been decided. This is a process. And in terms of, what we're suggesting is let's take the process into our control. And if in the future there was either the opportunity or the desire by the community and the council to pursue private partnerships or to surplus land to a developer for some type of development, that's in the future. Right now, we're just saying, let's build the infrastructure. Let's not walk away from Marina Steps will be an extraordinary thing that will put Des Moines on the map everywhere, because we've created connectivity between our downtown businesses and the opportunities that exist and the marina. And that's something that's probably long overdue. But because we have excellent architects and supportive council and the resources to do it, right, we can accomplish something phenomenal on behalf of the city. And that accomplishment should not intrude on anybody. It should only be a net benefit everywhere. So with that, I really appreciate the opportunity to share that with you, and we'll see what the council wants to do moving forward.
Pardon me, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael.
The city manager announced that he would, provide some kind of what would be the decision points for February the 2nd?
Do you not believe me?
I didn't hear what.
This wasn't the time that would be introduced.
You said.
It will be introduced tonight, but not now.
It'll be introduced.
My apologies. I thought those were your closing comments, sir.
All right, so I'll go ahead and close with my comments. I ran for office, and a lot of people talked about the fact that they were tired, that they hated the fact that we didn't have a grocery store downtown. They were tired of the empty lots in town. They wanted new restaurants and businesses, and we looked a little bit like 1962. The truth is the future is coming to us, and we either dictate it or we let somebody else. Density is coming to the downtown, whether people like it or not. As Deputy Mayor Buxton spoke, we can't be the sleepy town anymore. We've just grown too close together with all the urbanization with Seattle, Tacoma, and everything else. So we want to do it right. But one of the things we need is economic drivers, and it's a lot of different pieces. I completely disagree with Mr. Harris on the fact that Business Park. The Business Park has brought over 4,000 jobs, and it's going to bring more. It's brought residents to our community, and they shop here and they eat here. Those are revenue generators in addition to the utility taxes and other monies we get from them. The theater is going to be a great venue that's going to bring hundreds of people several times a night. They're going to eat in our restaurants and shop in our shops. The beach park rentals also do that. A lot of the people come here for weddings. It's constantly rented out. And nobody, excuse me, ma'am, thank you. They don't have sufficient places to stay. There's opportunities. SR3 is a great opportunity too. SR3 could bring tens of thousands of visitors to our community to see the seals being treated for in the proper way where the seals don't see them, and they're going to eat in our restaurants and do business here. In addition to our residents, right? The ferry service brought business here, and it gives great ability for you guys to visit Seattle. And if we expand it, which I love the idea, to other places and other cities, that would be great down the road. The hotel, I hear all the conversation about it being downtown rather than the city. I'm going to ask you, when you go to some place that has waterfront, do you stay in a place that has limited visibility in town, or if you have an opportunity to stay at the water? One of the #1 rules is location, location, location in brick and mortar business. This is why we have to consider this, right? So the consideration of for future, to put a hotel down by the harbor, by the Marina Steps or something like that is viable, and it is another component of economic generators. What that does is bring development and density to our downtown, right? We need 3-story buildings downtown, 35 feet. They have to have retail, they have to have parking, and they have to have residential. Density brings more dollars here, and that interests investors and developers. That's what brings new buildings. That's what brings more opportunity for other businesses to come here. It's a fact. It's the way it works. It's demand-driven economics. It's a proven concept. This is the thing here, is we tried height bonuses 9 years ago on council. They did something. They allowed a couple of businesses. The theater's one, and 9 years later, it's coming close to completion. The other was the pit between the Jack in the Box and Wally's. What is it still? It's a pit. The fact is the city has tried to be resourceful. These are private properties. Those businesses were handed essentially $1 million in value in their property, and it took this long to get done. So driving slow, but the more economic demanding factors you bring in, the better off you are to open up availability and investment. This is what I'm after here, and this is why we have to consider the bigger picture. Somebody talked about thinking holistically. I'm not thinking about the marina. I'm thinking about the whole town and its future. As we move forward, I'm not thinking for next 5 years, I'm thinking the next 50 and the 100. This is one of the reasons why the adaptive purpose building is gonna add moorage and bring in additional revenue to fund the marina itself so it can maintain its own enterprise fund. The city, due to our city's manager's leadership and council majority, is now in the best position it's been since we became a city, right? Somebody gave me a quote during this because they were wondering what I would say. And this is what they said, and I told them I was going to use it. Don't let the fear of what could happen make nothing happen. Now, I look forward to your comments after this session, and you write in emails and so forth. With that, I give you the greatest respect for showing up today. I appreciate it. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hard act to follow. So we will, on February 2nd, bring to council the following recommended motion. And it's going to say, I move to direct the administration to move forward with conducting feasibility studies for the public works projects for landside marina redevelopment. And with that direction from council, we would then incorporate those projects into the capital improvements plan that would need to be approved by council as part of the budget process this year. So that's what we will bring to you February 2nd. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. With that, do I have the next council meeting would be February 2nd at 6 p.m. for a regular council meeting, city council meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
I got 7 of them. I think I did it myself under my breath. With that, all in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Everybody be safe.